Good evening, everyone. So, our today's topic of discussion is drainage, chapter 3, I guess, chapter 3 of NCERT class 9. We have already discussed climate. Climate is already done. Chapter 4 is already done. You can look at the video, and if you have any doubts, you can always get back to me in the comment section. I'll reply you as and when time suggests. And our today's topic of discussion is drainage. Line by line, we'll explain the chapter drainage, and as I always say, every video will be of 10 to 15 minutes duration, so that is easier for everyone to revise, learn, and apply. Right? So, firstly, the term drainage describes the river system of an area. If we look at the physical map, we'll notice that small streams flowing from different directions come together to form the main river, which ultimately drains into a large water body. So we all know what is this drainage means. In one sentence, drainage means how a river is traveling from its mouth, from its source, to its mouth. Right? Okay, so let's take an example of Ganga. Ganga originates from Gangotri Glacier. So Gangotri Glacier is the origin or source, and what is the mouth? Mouth is the Bay of Bengal, right? Next, there is a concept on water divide. What is this water divide? In this diagram, let's refer to this diagram. In this diagram, water divide is a highland region. So let's draw over here. It's a mountain, and from this side we have one river, this side we have another river. This is the water divide. Okay. Next, if we move on further concepts, we have two types of drainage systems in India. One is the Himalayan river system, another is the peninsular river system. Now, the Himalayan river systems are perennial, which is important. Now, what does this word perennial means? Means all year there will be water. Why is this happening? Because the Himalayan rivers are snow-fed rivers. Means the origin, as I said, for example, let's take example of Ganga. The origin are glaciers. So for the whole year we have water source in these rivers. Okay. Next, if we move on, there are examples. There are three courses of a river. One is the upper course. Upper course means mostly in the mountainous region. Then comes the middle course, and then comes the plain region. So the upper course of the rivers are mostly steep, the gradient is high, whereas as the river moves down the middle course and the lower course, the speed or velocity decreases. As we move to the middle and lower course, the river is coming down in planar region and the velocity is decreasing. That's why we see a number of landforms such as oxbow lake, meanders, delta. Okay. Okay. Next, we're talking about the Himalayan river systems in detail. In the Himalayan river system, we'll find three river systems. One is Indus, another is Ganga, another is Brahmaputra. These three main rivers constitute the Himalayan river system. So when we talk about Indus, what is important here, which comes as an MCQ question, is where is its origin? It rises in Tibet near Mansarovar Lake, and it forms a gorge in the same part. It has tributaries like the Zaskar, Nubra, Shyok and Hunza. It flows to Baltistan and Gilgit and emerges from the mountains at Attock. The Satluj, Beas, Ravi, Chenab and Jhelum join together to enter the Indus near Mithankot in Pakistan. So we are aware of these tributaries, and you just have to remember these 3 to 4 from here. Okay, you can also take a note on the states through which Indus passes. We have Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal, Ladakh, Punjab. Next, if we move on to the Ganga river system. Now, the Ganga again starts its origin from the Gangotri glacier, and the Ganga is joined by it occurs somewhat like this. From here, Bhagirathi is coming. Here we have Alakananda. Sorry, my cursor is not working today somehow. This is Alakananda, okay? And they meet to form the Ganga, where at Devaprayag. Hmm? At Haridwar, the Ganga emerges from mountains to plains. Means Ganga from the mountains, it's coming down to the plains where in Haridwar region. It's a very sacred place for any religious individual. Next, if we move on, yeah, this picture. The confluence of Bhagirathi and Alakananda at Devaprayag. Bhagirathi and Alakananda comes from two directions, and from this region it is known as Ganga. Okay? Okay. Now let's talk about the tributaries of Ganga. So we have Yamuna, which is the largest, okay, largest tributary of Ganga is Yamuna. Yamuna, Ghagra, Gandak, Kosi. So we have right bank and left bank tributaries. Let's take an example of this map. So Ganga is coming this way and moving towards Bay of Bengal. So if we talk about the right bank tributaries, we have Yamuna, we have Son, okay, Chambal. But if we talk about left bank tributaries, we have Ghagra, Gandak, Kosi. Okay, clear? Okay, then let's move on. Yes. So next, directly, you can read this for your extra information, not an issue. We directly move on to the Brahmaputra river system. Again, what is important from MCQ point of view is the origin, that is Mansarovar Lake, again, which is very close to the sources of Indus and Satluj. What is Satluj? It is a tributary of Indus. Okay, it is slightly longer than Indus and most of its course lies outside India. It flows parallel to the Himalayas. On reaching Namcha it takes a U-turn. Where is this Namcha Let's take a look in the map. Here, Brahmaputra comes from, I just change my color. Yes, Brahmaputra coming from here. Here we have Namcha in this northeastern region. Namcha is one of the highest peaks of Himalayas. It takes a U-turn. In geographical word or geographical terminology, we call it as syntaxial bend. It is called a syntaxial bend. It takes a U-turn and enters Arunachal, Assam, and then finally flows into the Bay of Bengal. Okay. Okay. In Arunachal through a gorge, here it is called the Dihang. The names are important and joined by Dibang and Lohit. In Tibet, the river carries a smaller amount of water and it has a braided channel. Okay, what is a braid? What is a braid? A braid somewhat looks like this. And so slowly when the Ganga or Brahmaputra or Indus, whichever river, mostly here we are talking about Brahmaputra, when it comes towards the Bay of Bengal, it gets joined by Ganga and it forms a braided channel. What is this braided channel? It gets distributed into several shorter streams, okay? And this structure is called a delta. Understandable till now? Okay, let's move on to the peninsular rivers. Our Himalayan rivers are done. In a very short point of time, I have explained you the basics of Himalayan rivers. Now, if we talk about peninsular rivers, the main distinction between peninsular rivers and Himalayan rivers are these are non-perennial. Non-perennial means these are seasonal. Seasonal means only during the months of rainfall they will have water. Now, this is bookish language. Now, if you ask me that whether the rivers of Godavari, Kaveri, let's see what are the peninsular rivers. Let's look at the map. The main important rivers of peninsular India are Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri. So question says, are these rivers dry during summer? No, they are not. They still have huge amount of water, but more preferably, the largest quantities of water are mostly in the rainy seasons. That's why they are seasonal. They are not snow fed. There is no question of snow because they do not originate from the glaciers. They originate from regional lakes and sources of water. Okay, so we are talking about peninsular rivers. The first is Narmada. Now, Narmada rises in Amarkantak Hills, again very important in Madhya Pradesh, important. It flows towards the west in a rift valley formed due to faulting. Now, we'll talk about folding and faulting in separate videos. Just for basic example, how does a fault form? Let's say this is a surface and a crack develops and one part of the land remains in its location and the other part subsides down. So there is a fault which appears, and from this fault rivers can flow because the gradient is towards the Arabian Sea. So let's see the map once again. Why this is important? Now, when I talk about Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri, all flow from this direction to this direction, this direction to this direction. That is towards the Bay of Bengal. There are only two exceptions, which are Narmada and Tapi. Narmada and Tapi flows into the Arabian Sea. These are the only west flowing rivers. All these are east flowing rivers. They flow into the Bay of Bengal. Only Narmada and Tapi flows into the Arabian Sea. Okay, and both of them follows a Rift Valley pathway. Okay. Then if we move on, we have the Tapi Basin. Tapi rises in the Satpura ranges in this Betul district of Madhya Pradesh. It also it runs in a rift valley parallel to Narmada. Next, if we talk about the Godavari Basin, the largest peninsular river, it is also known as Dakshin Ganga. Yes, I was searching for this. It is also known as Dakshin Ganga. Very important question. The main tributaries include Vardha, Pranhita, Manjra, Venganga, Penganga. Question very much comes in MCQs or statement oriented questions is rivers and their tributaries and distributaries are very important because they comes in MCQs as well as assertion reasoning question as well as statement oriented questions. Next, we'll talk about Mahanadi Basin. Now, Mahanadi rises in the highlands of Chhattisgarh, the state. If you want, you can remember that it flows through Orissa, Bay of Bengal, flows in the Bay of Bengal. Krishna rises from a spring near Mahabaleshwar. Again, a very common and repetitive question. Mahabaleshwar, the location, and the tributaries are also important. Tungabhadra, Koena, Ghataprabha, Musi. Okay. Next, we talk about Kaveri. Kaveri rises in the Brahmagiri range of Western Ghats and reaches the Bay of Bengal through Tamil Nadu. Again, its main tributaries are Amravati, Bhavani. Only two of the tributaries will do. Now, we all know we have quite number of minor rivers. For example, Damodar in West Bengal, Brahmani, Baitarani, Subarnarekha. All these are in eastern regions mostly. Okay, our next topic is lakes. Now, we all know about Dal Lake in Kashmir, the Shikaras and all. We are very much famous. We are very much knowledgeable about the tourist places over here. Srinagar, Nainital, all these are locations which are famous for its lakes and tourists. Okay, now another concept comes as Oxbow. Let's understand Oxbow Lake in details. Now, what did I say? A river has an upper course, a middle course, and a lower course. When the river is in upper course, it is in its youthful stage. When it is in middle course, it is slowly and gradually maturing to old age. Right? Okay. So how does a river flow? Suppose this is a mountain. Let's take an example of Himalayas and the plains. So the river is flowing in a very steep gradient, very high velocity, and slowly it comes down to the plains and the velocity decreases. Now what happens when the river is traveling in a straight path in the upper course? Slowly when it comes to the plain, it does not have the capability to remove the obstacles when it is in its upper course because it's its high velocity. It has the power to remove the obstacles present over here. It breaks through the path. But when it comes to the middle and lower course, it does not have that position or that power or that velocity to break the rocks or whichever obstacles present in its path. So what it does, it kinds of avoids the path. So like this, the river moves and slowly takes up S-shaped path, and this is called meander. Meander. Now, from this meander, how does oxbow lakes form? Suppose the meander is forming and it's in a very intensified position. So first, the river will be straight. Next, it will be a little curved. Next, slowly these curvings will be very deep. Now what will happen? These two limbs will join together, or these two limbs will join together, or let's say, let's make it more preferable, and the next step will be, since these two will join, this portion will remain as a lake like this, and this portion will travel in a straight path. So this will be the river which is traveling in a straight path, but this will be the oxbow lake. It will be a cutoff from the river, and we all know that rivers change their path throughout their lifetime. So if this is a map of a particular place, and in 1900 the river is flowing through here, in 2050 the river might shift its course and move over here, but this oxbow lake will remain as it was formed in the location. So the oxbow lake remains over here, but in 2050 the river moves in this direction. Okay, understandable. Let's just read what is there in the book. Meander rivers across a floodplain from cutoffs that later forms into an oxbow lake. Spits and bars from lagoons in the coastal areas, example Chilka Lake, the Pulikat Lake, Koleru Lake. Lakes in the region of inland range are sometimes seasonal, for example of Sambar Lake. Okay, let's understand what happens in lagoons. Okay. We all know India somewhat looks like this. Here we have something called the Chilka Lake. Many of us have visited already. This is a very famous tourist spot. So how does this region looks like? It looks like this. Okay. So this is Bay of Bengal. The Bay of Bengal water enters over here as an intrusion, and this is called as the Chilka Lake. These kind of physiographic landforms are called lagoons. Okay. Next, most of the freshwater lakes are in the Himalayan region, some of glacial origin. Okay. What's the difference between this is saltwater lake, Sambar lake is saltwater lake, and freshwater lakes are formed from glacial ice melts. The largest freshwater lakes in India, that is the Uller Lake, again MCQ question, and Dal Lake, Bhimtal, Nainital are separate examples of it. Lastly, if we come to the role of rivers and economy, we know that rivers are very important. Why? Because river is the main source of agriculture. Why? The better the amount of water we have, the better the amount of agriculture we can do, and better the agriculture, better is the population. So river plays a very important role in settlements. In history, when we study about civilizations, we'll always see that Indus Valley civilization was formed by the river Indus. Then if we have Chinese civilization forms by the river Wangho. Then we have Mesopotamia was uh, framed on the lines of Tigris and Euphrates, right? These we have studied during our class 6-7 days. So whenever there is a river, there an important settlement grows. So keeping in mind the importance of rivers, we need to take care of the river from river pollution, right? This is self-explanatory. We should not post any kind of sewage waste, industrial effluents, untreated sewage, domestic wastes into the river. So that rivers are very vital for the economy, and we need to keep a track of its healthy development. Okay, wrapping up drainage for today. Thank you, and we'll catch up in the next videos.